Whoa, did you feel that? I don't know about you, but I certainly did. And a lot of other people also felt those recent earthquakes. You know, in just the past few weeks, BC has been shaken with multiple quakes. There was one on Sechelt, another off the coast of Port Alice, and a couple of more closer to Victoria and Sydney. And this has a lot of homeowners starting to wonder, how safe is my home? And am I in a high-risk zone? And if a bigger quake does hit, what does this mean for me and my property? Well, here's what you need to know. Not all areas of Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley are at equal risk, and some of the safest spots might actually surprise you. Hey guys, Glen Hopkins here, and today I'm going to break down which areas are more vulnerable to earthquake, which ones are more stable, and what types of homes are built to handle seismic activity the best. Now, before we dive in, let's be real here. Every place comes with its own set of risks. Whether it's earthquakes, floods, wildfires, or hurricanes, nowhere is completely risk-free. But that doesn't mean we should live in fear of what might happen. You know, worrying about the unknown, it's not going to change anything. But understanding the risks, making smart decisions, and preparing yourself will. So, you know, no matter where you live, uncertainty is just a part of life. The key here is knowing what to expect and how to protect yourself so that you can feel secure in your home and not anxious about what ifs. So let's get into it. You know, lately it feels kind of like BC has been shaking a lot more than usual. You know, just in the past few weeks, we've had multiple earthquakes, including a 4.7 magnitude near Sechelt on February the 21st, a 5.0 off the coast near Port Alice on February the 24th, a 4.1 east of Sydney on March the 3rd, and a 3.9 south of Victoria on March the 5th. So what the heck is going on here? Well, the reality is that BC is in an earthquake county. We sit near the Cascadia subduction zone, where tectonic plates are constantly shifting beneath us. This zone is capable of producing significant earthquakes, with magnitudes exceeding 9.0. While recent earthquakes haven't caused any major damage, they do serve as a reminder that a larger event is always possible. And so here is the question. Which areas in Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley are most at risk? Not all areas are going to feel earthquakes the same way. The biggest factor in determining how much shaking you're going to experience is going to come down to the type of ground that your home is built on. So if your home is on soft soil or sediment, the shaking here is going to be stronger and it's going to last longer. Areas with the highest risk include Richmond and Delta, which are both built on sediment from the Fraser River. Now, these areas are especially vulnerable to liquefaction, meaning that in a strong enough earthquake, the ground, it could actually lose its stability and behave like liquid. Now, parts of Surrey, such as Fraser Heights and parts of Guildford, also South Vancouver, like neighborhoods such as Marpole, they also sit on softer ground, which increases the intensity of that shaking. And then, of course, there's also Abbotsford and Chilliwack, which are located near the fault lines, making them more susceptible to seismic activity. Now, guys, this does not mean that you should avoid buying in these areas, okay? Not necessarily anyways, because many homes here are built with seismic upgrades, and there are steps that you can take to reinforce your property. But it is something that you should be aware of when you're choosing where you want to buy. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, some areas are built on solid bedrock, which doesn't amplify the shaking as much as solid soil does. And this makes them far more stable in earthquake situations. Now, if you're looking for lower risk areas, North Vancouver and West Vancouver, those areas are built on solid rock, which means less movement during seismic events. Burnaby Mountain is another area of more stable ground, as are certain neighborhoods in Vancouver, such as Kerrisdale and Dunbar. Now, does this mean that these areas are completely immune to earthquake? No, of course not. But if you are thinking long-term risk, well, choosing a location with more stable ground is one way to minimize potential damage. Now, let's talk about construction, because when it comes to earthquakes, the type of home that you buy matters just as much as where it's located. One of the most common questions that I get is, are high-rise buildings safer than low-rise buildings during an earthquake? And the short answer is yes. Yes, if they're built properly. You see, high-rise buildings, they've been engineered to sway during an earthquake, which actually helps them absorb energy and reduces that risk of actually collapsing. Low-rise buildings, on the other hand, they can be more vulnerable, especially if they've been built or were built before modern seismic codes were introduced, and if they haven't been retrofitted for added protection. Another key factor is the building material itself. Now, concrete structures, they are incredibly strong, but if they're not properly reinforced, they can become brittle and they can crack under extreme shaking. Now, wood frame homes, on the other hand, they tend to be more flexible, which allows them to absorb seismic movement better. That flexibility makes them safer, or at least a safer choice in many cases, as long as they are properly anchored to the foundation. But the biggest difference between a home that can handle an earthquake and one that can't is going to come down to when it was built. You see, seismic building codes have come a long way over the years. In British Columbia, homes built after the 1970s are generally considered to meet modern earthquake safety standards, as this is when significant seismic upgrades were incorporated into the building codes. Now, that said, if you are buying an older home, retrofitting it with foundation bolting, shear walls, and reinforcement can make a big difference in improving its earthquake resilience. Now, at the end of the day, though, no home is completely earthquake proof, but some are definitely better equipped than others. The key here is knowing what to look for and, if necessary, making those upgrades to ensure that your home is as safe as possible. So listen, if all of this is starting to sound a little overwhelming, don't worry, okay? There's a lot that you can do to prepare. The first step is knowing if your home is in a high-risk zone. So if you are buying a home, make sure that you're looking at properties that meet modern seismic codes. And if you're buying an older home, or if you own an older home, consider retrofitting it for added safety. Beyond that, I'd suggest having an emergency plan in place. Things like securing your heavy furniture to the wall to prevent it from toppling over, also knowing where the gas shutoff lines are, and maybe having an emergency kit ready. Now, these kind of things, they can go a long way in ensuring that you and your family are going to be prepared. But listen, earthquakes aren't the only natural hazard that you need to be thinking about. A lot of homeowners don't even realize that their home is sitting in a floodplain zone until it's too late. So in my next video, I'm going to be breaking down how to check if your home is at high risk of flooding and which areas in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley are most vulnerable, and what you can do to protect your home and your investment. If you have any questions and you want to chat more about this, feel free to reach out. There is a link in the description box below. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video.